20 on me, case emergency. Ain't no cap in my rap. Real I know it's the truck. More profit mean extra. Emerald white out full of pressure. That cereal milk smoking right. But that Obama rent some special. Kansas City, I'm a chief. Shout out to K5 on new one. Country thuggin', I was hustling. I always had it on me. Booming like OJ the Juice. Till a nigga told on me. From now on, it's relentless. Ain't no love, we ain't friendly. If she want me on him. No the law, she get the business. No the law, still the motto. Empire.
Hello. Welcome in. This is the Birds of a Feather podcast with your boy Q City. This is the Hawks edition. We're going to look back on the last 3 games of this week, look ahead to next week, do some ATL around the league, get a betting breakdown and give me props, and then some city talk at the end. So come along with me and enjoy this ride. So you guys, all us Hawks fans know that last week was rough. Just super rough. 0-3 week, and 2 of the games lost huge leads, and one of them wasn't even that close. We dive into the week. It was a West Coast trip. We're going to Phoenix, and we lost 121-117. This game was really categorized by the fact that we were anemic in the fourth quarter. Like, it was absolutely ridiculous how every shot that was falling just stopped. We scored 40 in the third, 19 in the fourth, and then allowed a 35-point fourth quarter. So it's not even like the overreaching that we did in the third was able to carry us through to the fourth. End up losing by 4. It was 98-86 going into this quarter. Collins on fire from 3. He ended the game 26-10. He had a great day. Trae Young 31-13-2. Is the guys we really need to carry us were carrying us this game. We just weren't able to consistently do it all the way through into the fourth quarter. And part of that I'm going to put on coach. Like, I'm going to talk about him a little later. But putting out that all bench unit that he consistently is trying to make a thing is killing us in not only points production, but offensive production. Hunter and Reddish were able to combine for 17 and 9, but they only had 1 assist. 1 assist in almost 30 minutes of play each, or 30 minutes of play in total. The Suns, Chris Paul did his thing, 16, 13, 6. You know he's going to pass the ball, and his mid-range is unstoppable. He got into the paint at will tonight, and even though Trae matched him in assist numbers and then almost doubled him up in points, you definitely felt like Chris Paul had more control of the game in the offense. And it was really functioned by the fact that he fed Booker all night. Book ended the night with 38, 6, and 4. And this was my problem with coach's game plan, is that, like, under no circumstances did we double him once he reached the elbow. At no point in time. You just kept putting Hunter on him and expecting him to shut him down. When it clearly wasn't happening, send the double his way. Now, don't get me wrong. I love the fact that Hunter is taking on these defensive assignments. He is going to the best player and really putting his stamp on the game defensively. But one, it's super hurting his offensive production. He ended this game with 2, 2, and 5. Like, offensively, you're just a body on the court at that point. He put up 10 shots, but he was 1 of 9 from 2 and then 0-1 from 3. So, you know, I love the fact that he still has the requisite energy and the ability to put up these shots, because you don't want to get to a point to where a guy just isn't shooting. But if this team is meant to take any next step or any, like, new level, we've got to get consistent production from him. Not only on the defensive end, which he is really stellar at, and he's really putting his stamp on, but on the offensive end, he has got to step it up, especially when Reddish is being especially when Reddish was being so inconsistent. He has settled into his consistency, and you're starting to really see what he's going to be game to game. And I don't need a whole bunch of points from you, but if you're going to be a green light scorer, just get efficient and get me around 12 to 15 per game. And that's where he's kind of staying, you saw on this road trip. And if you can do that consistently in other arenas, Denver will be the last game of this road stretch, then that's who you are. And I'm okay with that. We allowed way, way, way too much from the floor. Because from three, it was damn near identical. Or not identical. We took them over. We was like 39% from three. They were 33%. But we allowed 51% from twos. We was negative 10 points in the paint. Or negative 16 points in the paint. And then the whole point of having a secondary playmaker. We've got to get someone else who can not only handle the ball, but distribute the ball. Because as a team, we had 18 total assists. Trey had 13, which means every other player on the team had 5 assists. In comparison, the Suns had 26 total assists. Chris Paul had 13, which means like over half your assists came from one player and then came from everybody else on the team, which means the team was sharing the ball still. 13 of 18 is like 60, 65, 70%. It's ridiculous. Like, if that one person is the whole totality of your offense and he's also the leading scorer, once you take him out of the game, you're in a deficit. And that's like put on point by the fact that look at his plus minus. When Trey is off the floor, we're not only like a bad team, we are like one of the worst teams in the league with Trey off the floor. And we can't continue to live like this. Like, as a collective, this team has too much talent. Next, we went down to the Bay and faced the Warriors. They hit us with one of those nostalgic third quarter Warriors runs. They blew us out. Because like if you looked at the whole game in totality, the numbers are damn near identical. 46% to 47% on twos. 17 to 18 on threes. We lost points in the paint by like 12 points. And at one point in time, we had a 15-point lead. Steph just went crazy. Trey Young had 28, 9, and 3. He was 50% from 3. Had it from 2. He had it going, but kind of like I said last week, Steph is on a whole nother level. And Trey is who Steph is compared to, but he ain't there yet. Steph had a 50-point, 10 assists, 50% from 2, 50% from 3. Like, his efficiency for the game was mind-blowing. And this is another point of coach not recognizing a mismatch and truly dedicating 2 defenders to one player who's killing you. And for me, I felt like the Warriors game was truly just an ego trip on coach. Really saying that, like, no, Herter got it. Herter will shut Steph down. Or at least if Steph is going to kill us, we're going to put, a good lengthy defender on him and make him work. Hunter spent most of his night on Poole, and I loved it. I loved that matchup because then you got Collins on Green, and, rotations were working pretty well. But once you see a guy going, you have to dedicate 2 defenders to him. And if Draymond Green scores 25 on you or Poole scores 25, 30 on you, you live with that. You don't let Steph get 50. And then the second night of the back-to-back was against the Jazz, which is crazy that both of our games this season against the Jazz are on the second nights of back-to-backs. And we had 2 pathetic quarters. We were negative 10 in the second before halftime, and then we had an 18-point total fourth quarter. They had a 15-point total fourth quarter. We had an 18-point total fourth quarter. Like, our defense was on point, so to speak, but both teams were coming off the second night of a back-to-back. It was bad basketball. It wasn't great to watch. Hunter and Bogey were out with quote-unquote injuries, but I think it was more so just rest. We shot 51% from 3 and 44% from the field, but we allowed 50 from the field and 40 from 3. Mitchell had 27, 5, and 3, and Clarkson, who scored 30 on us before, those shots were given back up to Mitchell, but he still scored 16 points. Trey Young went 27, 6, and 2, and we put Herter into the starting lineup. He was able to score 28 points, and Reddish scored 16 off the bench. Collins had 7 points in 35 minutes and like 6 rebounds. Just a body out there. Granted, you got Gobert, but like just a body. It's really hard when him as a focal piece is someone you need to have great consistency, especially on a road trip. But I honestly think he expended so much energy wrestling with Draymond the night before and just getting the life sucked out of you with those Warriors runs. He really didn't have anything left coming into it. And you saw very early in this game that the energy was super low. We were up by one leaving the first quarter, but the energy just wasn't there. The energy just wasn't there. The building started rocking. And the crazy part is the crowd couldn't even get behind the Jazz because they didn't have any like super crazy runs this game. It's not like we were overly out of it. You know what I'm saying? We lost by 12, but like the game was close in the third. It's just as a team, shots weren't falling like they needed to, timely shots. And you never really felt like we were in this game at a point to win. My takeaways from this week were a bit negative, and it's because this was a negative week. Like, there's no other way to say it. We had an 0-3 week. This is a terrible week, and granted, all three of the teams that we faced, we may have faced the best team in the league, and the other two are playoff teams. But be that the case, we are a playoff team as well. To go 0-3 against us, this was just, and for two of the games to not even look competitive, really. You know what I'm saying? The Warriors blew you out, and then the Jazz, you just look like you didn't have it. It leaves you feeling as though, are we really that playoff caliber team? Was last year a fluke? What are we really doing if 12 games in, we're 4-8? This lack of a fast break we have going, this, like, we're almost grinding to a halt offensively. Like, 98 points against the Jazz, that's terrible. And it's the second time this year we scored under 100. Lou is out, Wright is in. You know, as that backup point guard, said we needed to make that move because I love Lou, love everything he's done in the league. He's an Atlanta legend, but like his NBA days are pretty much over. He says he's retiring at the end of the season. He's almost putting himself into an unplayable type moment. Trae Young, he's coming on. He's getting back to his offensive consistency. You see him passing the ball. He has great confidence. And his last two seasons, he started off kind of slow. Took him a minute to get into his rhythm and groove. It's about the third week of the season coming up. He's starting to hit his offensive consistency. The part that I have a problem with, Hunter's regression. Hunter is offensively grinding to a halt. And he is taking on massive defensive assignments. And I give him that. You know what I'm saying? Like, he is becoming our best, if not already, our best defender on the wing, locking people down, and he'll fight with you. He ain't gonna let nobody bully him in the post. I love it as a defender. He's got to be a two-way player. You got to give us more than 7 points, like, per night, even as a great defender. Cam is coming on consistently. Over this road trip, he averaged 13 points. And that's what I need from you. I need from about 12 to 16, you shooting a decent percentage, but leading that bench mob. You know what I'm saying? Coach Nate, though, I need adjustments. One, I hate his timeout calling. He does not call timeouts to stop runs. And it allows other teams to get a huge jump on us. And he is like married to this idea of full bench units instead of staggering the starters out. And it's killing us in runs. It is killing us in runs. In normal rotations and I'm usually not a person to try to critique rotations because you're coach, you're sitting there, you know the flow of the game. But when you look at the plus minus of some of his lineups, it makes no sense. Like, you have Gallo on the floor with Lou, Wright, Herter, and Reddish. Literally 5 bench players, no one to facilitate the offense. And then you take out one of those guys and put Bogey in and have him facilitate the offense instead of being the catch and shoot guy he's designed to be next to Trae. And I don't think we have a funky fit in pieces of players. You know what I'm saying? But how you're playing them is really just fucking them up in the idea of them being better than they are. And that's really what you want to be in a lineup. Greater than the sum of your parts. Overall, this was a terrible week. Like every game we went into, I thought we had a chance at the Suns game. I admittedly did not think we were going to win the Warriors game, and I felt we should have won the Jazz game. And just to see us come out flat, almost look unprepared, it was a terrible week. It was a terrible week, and we got to flush it and get on to the next one. All right, so we got to get out of that one. Let's go ahead and look to next week. Next week, first game, we're traveling to Denver. That's going to be Friday night. The Nuggets are 7-4 right now. Jokic will be back. He's averaging 25, 13, and 6 on the year. Dude is a monster in the middle. Capella's going to have his handful, and we're going to be switching with Collins. I hate when Dang's on him because Dang is going to get just absolutely throttled. Jokic in the game. Michael Porter Jr. is out. Of course, who's the point? Murray's out, still with the knee. They got the two greens, Jeff and JaMychal at the fours. They got Gordon from Orlando. He came over last year, and he's holding down that 3 spot. Defensive, athletic, super bouncy. If anything, I would love to see Collins on him and Hunter on one of the greens. And, Austin Rivers and Will Barton coming in the guard spots. I think this will be a very competitive game just because of the matchup, not necessarily looking at the record. I think if we're able to control the wings, where our strength lies in this game, we'll be able to make it very competitive. We're shooting the ball great from 3. You know what I'm saying? And Trey is facilitating the offense well. So I definitely see this being a winnable game coming on Friday. Then on Sunday, we got a rematch of the Eastern Conference Finals against the Bucks. Giannis averaging 27, 12, and 6 this year. Same cast of guys there from last year. Middleton, Holiday, Bobby Portis. They're playing 500 ball right now. And even though they're playing 500 ball, they've managed to win the last 4. We're on a 5-game losing streak right now. 4-8. They're coming up. We're going down. This is the Eastern Conference team and a great measuring stick of where we are as a team. I definitely see that one as a competitive game. I wouldn't be mad in the world if we lost it. But if we lose in Denver, Mile High, which is hard because you've got the high air and whatnot, it'll mess with your lungs. Players always talk about running out of breath playing up there. And then we lose against the Bucks. That's a 7-game losing streak, and we're 4-10. But Monday night is a get-right game. We're playing Orlando. They're 3-9. We're 12th right now. They're one of the few teams we're actually better than. Consistently better than. There's no reason for us to lose that game. They are a bad team. And it's not even that they're bad for the sake of being bad. They're young. They are super young. They got Cole Anthony, Jalen Suggs, Wendell Carter Jr., Mo Bamba. They got both the Wagner brothers, R.J. Hampton. Markelle Fultz is going to be coming back at some point when his knee gets straight. Like, they are all young. And young guys ain't supposed to win in this league. So we need to go in there and get right. Get right. Lock them down. Get the rotations right. This is a game in which your starters need to be sitting early in the 4th. Like, have them come out midway through the 3rd, have them come back late in the 3rd just to let them get a push run the last 2 minutes of the 3rd up to the first 3 minutes of the 4th quarter, and the game should be out of hand, and it should be over. It should be over. It should be good. Last but not least, we got Boston. And they've got some weird stuff going on with like their trade demands and rumors. Tatum's averaging 23, 8, and 4. Brown's averaging 25, 6, and 2. And outside of them, that's it. Like, that's their whole offense. You shut those two guys down, that's a win. They're under 500 ball right now at 5 and 6. And so at absolute worst, this should be a 2-2 week. And I hate putting 500 as the bar in which I'm judging this team, because I don't see us as a 41-41 team. Vegas had it at 42, bumped it up to 44. I said 50 very earlier in the year. I do not see us as a 41-win team. We are better than that. So, I hate setting 2-2 as the bar for the week. But when you look at our opponents and the matchups, I think 2-2 is completely reasonable heading into the week. So this is a new segment, ATL, or Around the League. I cannot take credit for the name. I got it from my man Chris. But it's just kind of like the in division on the Falcons part, where we look around the league, look at how we're faring up against, teams in our conference, in our division, our conference, and overall around the league, just to hit some, quick storylines and stuff like that. So as of right now, we're 4.5 games back from Washington. Washington is also the 1 seed in the East right now. So we're 4.5 games back from the 1 seed. We're about 2 games out of 8th place, which, that'll be the final spot in the playoffs as of right now. Just like I said on the Falcons podcast, it can be too early to be talking about playoffs, but it can be too late. It can't be too early, but it can be too late. You look up and you're completely out of it. We're not going to do that. We're going to keep track of where we are during the season and how we can get, to where we need to be. Statistically speaking, teams outside of the top 4 seeds usually do not have a chance to win the title. So that's our goal. That's the standard I'm holding this team to. We need to be a top 4 seed. Right now, we're 12th in the conference. 12th out of 15 teams. We only got 3 people under us right now. It is rough. It is bad. We have got to get better. Just some around the league notes. You got the Ben Simmons situation going on. I'll discuss that a little more in City Talk. But, he's having a mental health crisis, and so the 76ers are looking to shop him. The Warriors are on a mission right now. 10-1. They are just flying high, destroying the league. And an interesting story that I saw, well, not even a story, but just more so of a trend, is that last year's playoff teams are having a seriously slow start to the year. So if you look at it, Brooklyn, who was the 2 seed last year, but had a very great chance to be the 1 seed, is at 3. Philly, who was the 3 seed last year, is at 4. New York, who was the 4 seed last year, is at 7. Milwaukee, who was the 1 seed, is at 8. Atlanta, who was the 5 seed, is at 12. Boston, who I think they were 7 last year, is at 11. Indy, who was at 8, is at 13. And Miami, who was at 6, is at 5. But this just goes to show that, that COVID year, that bubble year, which is quote unquote 2 years ago, kind of had a very screwy effect on, bodies, rest, seasons, and whatnot. And not to say last year was a fluke or anything like that, but we definitely benefited from not being in the bubble. It's just facts. It is what it is. We benefited from not being in the bubble. And so kind of having that everyone on an even playing field, having the summer off, I think has allowed, the rest of the league to kind of catch up in a health sense. And so even with this kind of increased level of competition, health-wise, Atlanta should be doing a lot better. But I just thought it was very interesting that, that COVID bubble season is still having an effect on the league today, 2 years later. But even when it happened, everyone was saying it's going to take a year or 2 years for the league to get back on track, back in the calendar of things it's supposed to do. And you kind of see things leveling and evening out. And now on to my favorite portion, the betting portion. Give me props, where, I bet on the Sharp app. I give out my over and unders on Twitter at QCity11. You can get at me there or message me on Instagram at QCity11. And also follow me and subscribe on YouTube at QCity Media. That'll be out later this week by Sunday, actually. So, hey, look out for me there. Subscribe to the channel. That'll be coming up. So far, I was 5-1 this week on my picks and over and unders. and I'm 11-9 on the season, which is 55%. Professional bettors, they look for that 60% mark. I feel like I'm getting there. Not going to be a professional, but if I feel like I'm giving out good advice if that's where I'm at. So I had Phoenix in the over, I had Warriors in the over, and then I had the Hawks in the under in the last game versus the Jazz. So went 5-1, not a bad week. Give out my picks before each game on Twitter at QCity11. So look at me there. My football picks, the prop bets come out on Thursday, so I go ahead and give those out. I'm 6-6 on the season there, 500. So my 4 prop bets for this week: Zacchaeus over 24.5 receiving yards. Definitely see him slide into that third receiver role. Matt is going to be throwing the ball a lot this game because I feel like our running game is completely ineffective, and Michael Parsons is going to blow that up on the line. Even with Dallas putting someone on the IR today, I still think Atlanta would be airing the ball out. Hurts 2.5 receptions. I took the over on that one. Definitely see him catching at least 3 balls this week. Matt 24.5 completions. Even though I said I got him throwing the ball a lot, I took the under on his completions because I think we're going to have to hit deep shots this week. So 24.5 completions, I took the under. I see him around 21 to 23 completions this week. And then total rushing and receiving yards, 53.5 for Mike Davis. Definitely taking the under here. I think he's a terrible player, and I think he's going to fall out of this rotation very soon as we, start picking up practice squad and waiver wire guys. I understand he was a signing, and you kind of are trying to see him in a Mark Ingram role and have Cordell Patterson in the Alvin Kamara role, like he had in New Orleans, but Mike Davis ain't the guy. So those are my 4 picks this week. Zacchaeus over 24.5 receiving yards. Hurts over 2.5 receptions. Matt under 24.5 completions. And Davis under 53.5 yards rushing and receiving. So let's get at it this week. All right, you guys, let's get into some city talk. So I encourage people to get at me at QCity11 on Instagram. DMs are open. Go ahead, just slide in there and give me some topics, some things you want to, talk about, some viewpoints. I'm always down to learn and listen more, and then just give my viewpoint on it here on the podcast, and I'll read you out. One of the points and stories that I saw today that people are aren't getting behind, but that I personally would be super excited for, is Ben Simmons to Atlanta. And you say it and people are like, oh no, man, don't nobody want Ben Simmons, oh, you're crazy or whatever. I don't think people truly realize that this guy is 25 years old, has made 2 all NBA teams, all defensive NBA teams, and 3 all-star games. He's done in Philly because he's sitting next to Embiid and he's in an offense that does not accentuate his skills. He was told by his head coach that he doesn't think he's a championship player. What Ben does well, Trey does extremely poorly. And what Trey does well, Ben does extremely poorly. They are literally a match made in heaven in the backcourt. Not every backcourt can be the Splash Brothers. You know what I'm saying? But Magic didn't need a facilitator next to him. He needed a cutter and a shooter. You know what I'm saying? LeBron needed someone like Kyrie next to him. You know what I'm saying? That worked. You don't necessarily need someone who has a redundancy of what you do in the backcourt with you, or, as your teammate. Ben is a huge defensive stopper. Now, I think it would be kind of hard to have him and Hunter on the floor together because the proposed trade. So this is what you would have to do to get Simmons. You would get Simmons and Milton. They would get Bogey, Reddish, Jalen Johnson, or a pick, and then Wright to make the salaries work. That's the Wright and Milton are basically the throw-ins. So at that point, you would immediately have your backup point guard solidified. Shake Milton is a legit backup point guard. So that's not something you're worried about anymore. Your starting 5 would be Trey. I personally would put Herter in the starting lineup then. You got Trey, Herter, Ben at the 3, Hunter at the 4, and then Capella at the 5. You have a bit of a logjam at the no. Back that up. You're gonna have Trey and Simmons in the backcourt, Hunter at the 3, Collins at the 4, and then Capella at the 5. That's my fault. Herter's still gonna be coming off the bench in this scenario, next to Shake Milton, who will be your backup point guard in this scenario. You're gonna have a logjam with the shooting on the floor, which is why I was saying I would want Herter in the starting lineup, but I love Hunter there for his defensive versatility at all. You will be a top echelon defensive team at that point. You've got 2 lockdown perimeter defenders in Simmons and Hunter. And then you can space the floor because Hunter can shoot the 3 and Collins has shown a propensity to shoot the 3. Now, I wouldn't be opposed to going all in on small ball, moving Collins to the 5, moving Herter into the to the starting lineup, and trading Capella. If you wanted to get Ben and open up the lane, Collins will be your small ball. Collins will be your 5. Hunter will be your 4. Ben at the 3, and then Herter at the 2. I was getting ahead of myself earlier. Sorry, but when you look at it, that team would still be decent defensively. You know what I'm saying? I don't see us getting fully out rebounded because Ben's almost 7 foot. Same, Collins is 6'10", very sturdy guy, super athletic, and has shown a propensity to rebound at a high rate. Trading for Ben wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. And I think that people let media types get in their head about what a player is or isn't or can and can't do, instead of just like watching the games, looking at the player. Ben is an awesome player. And in that game 7, where people talk about the fact that he gave up on the dunk, Trey had a terrible game in game 7. He was saved because Herter had an awesome game. But Herter had an awesome game because he had Seth Curry on him, where previously in the series, he had Ben Simmons on him and was playing like shit. Ben went on Trey into game 7, and Trey played like shit. You talk about the kid out in Sacramento whose name is Off Night. Like, no, Ben is an Off Night. He is a defensive monster. Might be one of the best defensive players in the game, and had a serious case for Defensive Player of the Year last year. You add him to this team, you got to figure out the offense. You got to figure out the spacing. I think it would be a little difficult at first, but get the talent. Like, having the talent is always a great thing. I wouldn't be opposed to this trade for Ben. It frees up some of this backcourt because, like, we have a logjam at the wings. Jalen Johnson is never going to see the court, so I wouldn't mind trading him instead of the pick. Right, you're going to get a backup point guard back in Milton. Reddish, I hate to see him go. That's the hard piece in this for me, especially because I think he's going to be good in Philly, like next to Seth, like coming off the bench. I think he will be a great player for them if this trade was to consummate. And then Bogey, I've been saying it this year, like Bogey hurt his knee and played on it last playoffs, and he came back this year. He ain't right. He's not. And I'm not saying like just give up on him. He's damaged goods or whatnot, but it's not the worst thing in the world to see Bogey go, is all I'm saying there. So don't believe the hype. Ben coming to Atlanta would be an amazing thing and would really help solidify our defense and push us into that top echelon category. So if it happens, I'm all for it. The next thing. So the guy I was talking to, Chris, who gave me the ATL around the league. Shout out to you, bro. I stole the name for your thing, so I figured I'd shout you out. We got to talking about the AAU circuit, and he's a coach. And one of the things he said that really stuck out to me was the AAU being like a chicken factory. And I touched on it a bit last week, but I don't think I truly was able to give my true disdain for what the AAU circuit has turned into in travel ball in itself. And I think the chicken factory analogy was probably the best way to describe it. So not to get like too graphic or crazy, but like the whole term of like chicken factory and using it in a sense, like of jobs or people or anything. Chickens, they're hatched, they're born, they're consummated, they live, they die strictly in this factory. But they're turned out at such a high rate that like separated from like boys and girls, all that at such a high rate that each individual chicken like almost has no meaning. You know what I'm saying? Like each individual chicken doesn't actually mean anything. It's more so just the system in place of having those chickens reach their destination. You look at guys in the league. I mentioned earlier that like Michael Porter Jr. is not playing for Denver. His back has been bad since he entered the league. Since before he entered the league. He's 23. He is 23 years old. We are having guys blow out ACLs routinely. And it is because we are grinding these young athletes all for the sake of, well, you might make it to the league. When only the 1% of the 1% make the league. And if you don't honestly realize how small a percentage that is, Harry Giles tore ACLs in both his knees. And he's in the league. Like the immense amount of talent that man possesses. Because like he is literally, like if one knee you're on half of yourself, he blew both knees. So he's like a fourth of himself. So a fourth of Harry Giles is better than like 99.9% of guys out there who can hoop. And like most people who have the hoop dream, like growing up, think their final destination is the NBA. When like there's 450 jobs. There's 450 jobs there. And like you have to, because most people live with the delirium that like, oh, I can make it to the league. Guys who actually have that chance, who are fringe guys, you know what I'm saying? Not the LeBrons, the KDs, the Anthony Davises. Those guys were going to be in the league regardless. Like there was really nothing that was going to stop them from being in the league. They have the talent, the drive, the God-given gifts. You know what I'm saying? The bottom thirds of the league, the guys I was just talking about, Shake Milton, DeLon Wright. Those guys have to push their bodies. And I would honestly say it's gone drastic in the last 10 years. That those guys have to put their bodies through so many games to get noticed. Like just to get a D1 offer, a low D1 offer, Lord forbid you go to a mid-major or a high D1 offer, the amount of games you have to play. And some of these AAU circuits have you playing 10 games in a weekend. 10 games against requisite composition in a weekend. Now, these players aren't as good as NBA players, but you're playing against requisite competition, which means like the intensity and level of the game is like you're playing an NBA game. For like a high schooler, you're playing against top echelon other high school talent. There is no world in which you would play a second NBA game in the same night. Like they don't even like you doing a super hard practice before an NBA game. So in what world would we play a game from 9 to about, let's just say 10:45, 11 o'clock, rest for an hour. You've got another game at 1, rest for 3 hours after that. You've got a game at 7, and then you've got a game at 10. What in the hell? Just to turn around and you've got the 9 o'clock game tomorrow? You're playing 8 to 10 games in a weekend. What the hell are we doing to these young athletes who are in the prime of their developing years? If you're a guy who's going to be 6'4", 6'5", 6'6", your body is constantly growing. You have the aches and pains of growing. But these guys are developing injuries or developing muscle patterns, you know what I'm saying, at such an early age that like their bodies can't even fully develop. When you talk about guys in the 80s and 90s, early 2000s, These injuries existed, but they were not at the rate they are at. Injuries are up almost 20%. And it is truly because the legs and miles that kids are putting on their bodies just to get noticed, to get to the D1 program, to get to the league. And I think personally, that is why there is such the push to pay kids sooner. That's why you get this overtime elites thing and kids going to the G League. Because, like, I got to get my slice of the pie because there's no guarantee that I'm going to get my big payday. And I think that leads to the death of the college game. One, it leads to bad NBA game too, because like guys can't stay healthy. Guys cannot stay healthy, or you constantly got to rest guys and manage their body because you're drafting a 19, 20-year-old who has knees of a 27, 28-year-old 4-year vet. You know what I'm saying? We always talk about LeBron James and Michael Jordan, you know, like GOAT status, this and that. One of the arguments for LeBron is, you know, like longevity, and he's got all these numbers. And one of the counteracts for that is like, oh, well, Jordan played 3 years in college, right? Absolutely. Jordan played 3 years in college and then managed to come to the league. And for the first like 14 years of his career, his only major injury was breaking a foot when he came down wrong. Now, granted, he is a genetic freak. He's one of like those guys gift the earth type people in terms of like a basketball body. But the fact that he didn't have that constant grind of like AAU circuit after AAU circuit after AAU circuit. He was a McDonald's All-American almost basically based off his high school games, his high school averages. I don't think how it's currently constructed is good for the game at the back end. We weren't talking about paying 15, 16, 17-year-olds even 5 years ago. We finally got to the point to where we should pay college kids. And I think as the game exploded on the college level, everyone agreed, okay, college players should be getting paid more than just their room and board. You know what I'm saying? Like March Madness is bringing in $100 million, $200 million. Kids need to start getting paid. Okay, that's fine. No one's arguing that. We're talking about kids skipping their whole high school experience to go to a requisite academy, basically the European system, a requisite basketball or sports academy, for the opportunity to maybe play on the college level and possibly play at the pro ranks. You know what I'm saying? When only 450 people get this opportunity. And the guys who are at the top echelon, they have 14, 15, 16-year careers. So it's not like it was a crazy stat. I think it was, and I want to quote it right. Out of the 450 players in the league, it's like only the bottom 100 consistently change. 350 players stay the same like every year. That's where's your in? Where's your in, and what are we doing to these young athletes to get in? Now I understand, no sacrifice, no reward. You know what I'm saying? It's just I felt like the chicken factory analogy was so well suited to how the AAU is just grinding up bodies and spitting them out. And if you're one of the ones that make it, you swear by it. But all the kids that don't have that. It's just something to think about. All right, y'all. My last city talk topic is about the WNBA. Me personally, like, this ain't for clout or nothing, because like most of the people who listen to my podcast are dudes. I give it to guys all the time and be like, hey man, listen to it. So this ain't like trying to pander to women or nothing. I'm a girl dad, you know. I have 2 daughters, and I love them taking an interest in sports and loving sports like I do. And so like seeing themselves in sports is always something that's important to me. And so like because of that, I try to follow the WNBA. And they're subsidized by the NBA. We know they have marketing issues and money issues and all those things. And so this is just me personally, what I feel like could help the WNBA reach the heights that I feel they need to reach to completely separate themselves from the NBA and start building their own brand like the European model, because the European and Asian women's basketball model is extremely lucrative. That is why the WNBA is kind of how it is because like most of our talent goes overseas to play. They go overseas because that's where the money is. If they were able to get money over here, they would stay. And many of them have said it time and again, but they're not able to. So I check it like this. The regular WNBA season is 36 games. It starts in May, ends in October. The finals are in October. That's like an average of 6 games every 5 days. Me, obviously, I would be an Atlanta Dream fan. You're telling me I see you once a week, maybe. And their only major television brand is ESPN. Like they're not playing on their local regional affiliates. And that's because they're playing during summer months, and those slots are usually taken up by baseball, right? The Dream are actually in a great opportunity because they can play on Bally Sports because the Braves are Turner Sports. You know what I'm saying? But other teams in those markets don't really have that. So I would say the Dream in particular have a great model to help build their fan base. Side note, we're cable cutters, and like this whole Bally Sports thing, having to buy a whole nother package just to do Bally Sports when like I was paying Hulu like $50, you know what I'm saying? And so I really think that both teams, the Hawks, the Dream, need to get that figured out on how else to get their publishing out, because the other place I saw you could do it is YouTube TV. And like, I'm not going to pay for YouTube TV. I'm not going to pay because YouTube TV doesn't have NFL. And so, yeah, we got to find a package to get all those things. That's not one of the big, Dish or Comcast type things. But anyway, back into it. I propose going from 36 games to 50, right? You start the season in April. First off, you have the draft a week after March Madness. The girls who are just finishing their March Madness are riding high. Go ahead and draft them coming in, early. Most people be like, oh, you don't know what their March Madness, numbers are. If you're a scout worth any of your salt, you already have your scouting evaluation done before March Madness. And that's with almost every player on the male and female side. There's very little you're going to see in that tournament that's really going to push you. You really look at conference tournaments and then their games against their requisite level of competition. If they're a smaller school, like girl or guy, and they're going to play against a big school, you might take that into consideration. Or if someone has like a magical run, you'll take a second look. But you're a scout, that's what you get paid for. Go ahead and have the draft a week after March Madness. Have your preseason games about the third week in April. Like that second weekend to the third week in April. Have a couple preseason games. Start your week the last weekend in April. That gives you April, May, June, getting your season underway. That's about 3 months. You want to go ahead and get about 25 to 26 games out the way around that point. Then you have an all-star break when the NBA has their finals. Now, if you look at NBA ratings spike around Christmas Day because like that's the big NBA day, and then they skyrocket after the all-star break in February. And it's because football season is completely over and everybody hones in on the basketball season for February, March, April, May, and then the finals in June, right? Your April, May, and you get when the finals come in June, get your all-star break, you ride that same wave from the NBA, everybody talking about the NBA being basketball centric. And baseball is, even though, we love the Falcons, we love the Braves. I mean, there's not taking anything away from the Braves. Baseball is usually a background sport in the sense of like you have it on just to have it on. You don't really follow it in the sense of I'm tuning in every day to check out this game. It's more so like, the game's on. With basketball, there's usually a little bit more sense of urgency. So you're riding the wave from the NBA leaving their finals and you coming back from your All-Star break. Your only competition is baseball, which doesn't have great urgency, and you're able to ride that into the end of June, July, August, and September July, August, and the first 2 weeks of September to get the rest of your 25 games in. 24 to 25 games in. That's 50 games right there. I personally propose that you add 2 more teams so you could have a bit of exclusivity to the playoffs. You go 5-5-7 on your rounds, because you're only doing 2 rounds. They don't do 3 like the NBA. You only do 2 rounds. You go 5-5-7. You start the second week in September, all the way through the second week of October. Your playoffs will be right around a month. You get your first round done in 2 weeks, your second round done in about 2 weeks, and then your finals done in the last week and a half ish. Bam, you are done, and you're wrapping up right around the time preseason is starting for the NBA. It is literally all year round basketball, and you're becoming a part of it. Now, the only part I would say would be kind of hard would be the whole drafting right after March Madness. But I personally feel like the only reason that the women's game is in sync in college with the men's game is because the WNBA has not positioned themselves as a truly money marketable tool. Because if the women's game decided that they were going to be a huge reckoning force on, taking over the summer, and they're going to be a 20 team league, and they're going to have 50 games in their regular season, the college women's game would then separate from the men's college game and match their schedule to the WNBA so that their players can be fresh and exposed in the WNBA. Does anyone not think that, like, the college men's game has their March Madness, and then players have their draft in June so that they're ready for October, so that they have tons of time off to not only have a build up and combine, but then a rest and recovery before they start the season? And no one thinks it's weird how the girls end their season in March and start their season in May. And it's because, quote unquote, no one watches the game. No, there's not a money incentive for the women who are built their brands in college to then come into the NBA and WNBA and continue their brand. One of the people I felt like was going to be super marketable, Maya Moore. She went to Minnesota and disappeared. And I'm one of the people who watch women's basketball. She disappeared. Brittany Griner. You didn't hear about her until she ended up winning this championship. You know what I'm saying? And women are dunking now. So the one thing that set her apart was she dunks consistently. It's well, no, there's a couple women dunking now. You know what I'm saying? It's not like a parlor trick anymore. It's part of the game. And so I would love to see them marketed more. I would love to see more done with them. I think these are some good effects that could help boost the popularity of this league, because I love when my daughter's taking interest in sports. And like I said, I love for them to see themselves on the TV. Everybody want to be like Mike. Everyone be like Jordan, But the first player I truly, truly fell in love with on the basketball court was Chauncey Billups, Big Shot Chauncey. You see him and it's you could see yourself doing that. Little stocky guard, dude could make shots. I could do that, And when little girls don't have that, they won't fall in love with sports the same way. And I definitely want to be able to give that to them. And these are things I think would help. So, as you can tell, I've gone a little long on this one, got a little passionate about it. But I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. Appreciate y'all. Thank you for all you do. Thank you for rating, reviewing, subscribing. I'm on Apples and iTunes. I'm on Spotify. Look me up for the Birds of a Feather podcast on Instagram and Instagram and Twitter. It's QCity11. Get at me. for any of these City Talk points. And I'll catch y'all later.
Looking like I hit the lotto. I want a hottie like mulatto. I'm on here and she on Moscato. I'm in them good till tomorrow. I'm a robber for the Neros. Your little loss, I'ma put you on payroll. You smell that aroma? Design the air, it's a party in here. Papa Corona, she moving the body, she working them heels. Gotta go get it mentality. Grocery bag full of celery. Only believe half what you telling me. Keep a 20 on me, case emergency. I wake up early every morning. Thank the Lord and get the bag. Hustle hard, get the cash. Stack first, then I'm showing my ass. Gotta go get it mentality. Grocery bag full of celery. Only believe half what you telling me. Keep a 20 on me, case emergency.
My babies, that's who I grind for. That's who I do it for. Like the Navy, that's who I'm toting that iron for. Keep one in the head like a thought, nigga. Yeah, I fuck with Ty, he a boss, nigga. Foot on their neck, I exhaust, nigga. Niggas cross me, so I cross, nigga. No stripper was lit last night. 500, what it cost, nigga. Shit was really legit last night. Had them hoes at the house, nigga. Instagram, Snapchat, Triller. What they say about Jay, he a go-getter. Used to have them fat sacks in the grove, nigga. Late nights, early morning in my dough, nigga.
You smell that aroma? Design the air, it's a party in here. Papa Corona, she moving the body, she working them heels. Gotta go get it mentality. Grocery bag full of celery. Only believe half what you telling me. Keep a 20